approved. Next, I would like to open the floor for any members of the public in person or virtually who would like to make general comments, not about the Providence Heights Wireless Facility Community Conference, but on general topics. There will be an opportunity later in the meeting for those who would like to comment about the project on tonight's agenda. Those who are in person and signed up in advance to make comments will be called on first. If you are in the room and did not sign up, I will ask for other speakers before closing this portion of the meeting. If you are joining us by computer or smartphone and would like to make a comment, please raise your virtual hand. This varies by device. One option may be to go to the participation panel and choose the raise hand icon in the lower right-hand corner. It may also be located under the reactions menu or more menu. If you are on the phone and not a computer, please press *3 on your phone. For those making comments, please direct your comments to the Development Commission and not individuals. For in-person attendees, please step up to the lectern. For all meeting attendees participating virtually, when recognized, please unmute your mic. When it is your turn to speak, state your name, speak clearly and pause frequently, and limit your comments to 5 minutes. If you are attending virtually and do not respond after your name or phone number is called, or if your connection is lost unexpectedly, the meeting will need to proceed. You are encouraged to rejoin the meeting if able. Jared, has anyone signed up to make general public comments?
Not at the moment.
Is there anyone here who would like to make general public comments? All right, we will move on to the community conference. The purpose of the first agenda item this evening is the community conference for the Verizon SEA Providence Heights Wireless Community Facility. The order of operation for this item will be appearance of fairness, staff presentation, applicant presentation, public comment, and Development Commission comment. Let's see. Now we will proceed with the staff's presentation.
Good evening. I'm Doug Yormick, Associate Environmental Planner with the City of Issaquah, and I am the planner who's reviewing the wireless facility project. As is stated, this is a community conference. This is kind of a weird quirk in our code where variances in the flow chart go through community conference. Variances are heard by a hearing examiner, still quasi-judicial, but just goes to a different body. So the purpose of this is just to facilitate discussion with the community. Development Commission will make no formal recommendations or will hear this project in the end as it will go to a hearing examiner. So the purpose, as I stated, is to get early engagement with the surrounding community members, foster discussion and big picture items. There may be things on the ground that aren't aware of or other issues with the property, and to provide feedback to the applicant. So the site is 28.86 acres. It is the Issaquah School District site for the new high school and elementary school. The wireless lease area will be approximately 60 by 60 feet on the site. This area was also identified in the site development permit in the master site plan. And this is a replacement of an existing wireless facility that's currently on a water tower. And the new facility will be approximately 150 feet in height. It'll serve the 3 existing carriers that are on the water tower and an additional. So the permit process, we're at the beginning. So we're starting with the community conference. A variance and an administrative site development permit will be submitted During that, we'll have State Environmental Policy Act review. When that's all done, the variance, administrative site development permit, and SEPA, we will take everything to hearing examiner. Following hearing examiner's decision, if it's an approval, the project will move into construction permits. So the site is the Issaquah School District site. On the map, you see the little red circle in the southeast corner. That's where the current water tower is, and that is where the new wireless facility will be located. It's in the Providence Point neighborhood in Issaquah. It is zoned community facilities, and in the comprehensive plan, it is community facilities. Here is a photo simulation of what is being proposed from the surrounding community. It is somewhat camouflaged to make it look like a tree, but as you can see, it's approximately 150 feet in height, and so it will blend in kind of with the surrounding trees, because it's the area that this pole is going to be is heavily treed. Applicable codes. So this falls in the Issaquah Municipal Code, Title 18, and Chapter 1822 is the Wireless Facilities Code. The district standards for community facilities follows the most restrictive contiguous zoning. The most restrictive zoning in the area is single-family small lot. So there are setback requirements of 10 feet for the front, 6 for the side, and 20 feet for the rear. This will meet the setbacks of the property lines as it's currently proposed. For wireless siting, there are we have three criteria. One's encouraged, one's discouraged, and one is just outright prohibited. The site is community facilities, so that it's considered a non-residential lot, and that falls into the encouraged category. Design requirements are also in 1822, and there's a max height of 85 feet for a macro cell tower. So the purpose of the variance is for the height variance to increase it to 150 feet in order to accommodate the 4 carriers and get it above tree line for line of sight, so that there's coverage over the rest of the neighborhood. As I mentioned before, there are existing cell antennas on the water tower. Those antennae are at approximately 125 feet. The water tower is soon to be demolished as part of the redevelopment of the school site, and the height of the tower is 150 feet. 1804 is where we will find the variance criteria, and this is the criteria that the applicants will have to demonstrate to the hearing examiner for final approval. Staff will provide a recommendation to the hearing examiner in advance of the meeting, and the hearing examiner will make the final determination. So if you want to stay informed in this project, my contact information is on the screen. I can be reached either through email or phone call. And with that, do you have any questions or comments before I give it to the applicant? Okay. Applicant, the floor is yours. Yeah.
Good evening, Chair Shore and members of the Commission. My name is Kim Allen. This is my colleague, Lee Lavaga. We're with the Wireless Policy Group and are here representing the applicants this evening. And thank you for the opportunity for our team to come out tonight and present this project to you and to the community. We have professional folks here in the room and on the Zoom call who have worked on many different aspects of this project. We appreciate the work of city staff and the work of the Development Commission to host this meeting and to share with you a very important project for the community. We welcome your feedback and would be happy to answer any questions you might have when we conclude our presentation. Next slide. Okay, as Mr. Yormick explained, the proposal is a replacement tower of an existing facility, the water tank, which is going to be decommissioned at during the construction of the new high school and elementary school. So there are 3 carriers on that water tank right now: Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile. They've been on that water tower for more than 10 years. And we need to find a new home for the antennas so that we can keep the coverage going in this area. The location of the site, as you saw, is at the east of Providence Point Loop Road. This is an overhead map of the cell site. And here are a couple of pictures here of the water tank site, the existing facility. You know, on the left is kind of the area surrounding it, and then the water tank itself. As you have heard, and I know that you've been involved with the school district project too, the school district is redeveloping this property with a new campus, which will require relocating our cell site. The school district's approved site development plan allocates this location for the replacement WCF, and also the school district has selected this particular location as the place where they will allow the cell tower to go as well. You can go back one. There we go. So the purpose of this replacement is to find a new home to be able to kind of keep the lights on for 3 existing carriers, and then Dish Wireless is a new carrier entering the market, and they will also be asking to relocate to locate antennas on this tower in order to add a 4th choice of carriers for the residents of this area. Continuity of service and keeping the lights on with the service is really vital. 911 services, voice and data services, and certainly as we found with during the pandemic, the need and reliance on cell phones, both for work, for telemedicine, at people's homes, for education, is exploding. You know, definitely, we've seen no reduction in the need for cell phones, and in fact, they have actually become kind of the remote controls for our lives in a lot of ways, in the way we use cell phones. So it is the goal of this facility to have a continuity of service for the residents in this area, and then also to offer the 4th choice of Dish Wireless. And we do focus on public safety because first responders are very heavy users of all of the wireless networks. And also, because this community campus will host 2 schools, cue the public safety, we know that coverage and seamless wireless service is important for the campuses as well and for the schools. So service interruptions and drop calls can impact the safety of the community and the ability to connect to E911 services in the event of an emergency. Most people in this state rely on their wireless devices alone rather than a landline to access E911 services. So it's very important to the community and to the wireless carriers to keep the lights on here. And without the replacement facility that we're proposing, there's actually nowhere to go. As you know, if you're familiar with this area, it's surrounded by residential. That's not an allowed use in residential areas. And this particular location on the campus is the one location that the district is permitting us to go. So we're kind of down to just one choice. Next. So we're here to talk about a variance of the height restriction under the wireless code. The wireless code limits the height of a facility to 85 feet. This is a big problem for this particular facility. It's unique in that we're going to host 4 carriers on 1 tower, thus eliminating the need for 3 additional towers in the area. And because the tree line is approximately 110 feet, the lowest carrier's antennas have to clear that tree line. So the lowest carrier's antenna on the tower need to be above the 110 feet, And then there also needs to be a separation in between each carrier's antennas to avoid interference. So we know that we hired an expert, a third-party independent consultant, to analyze the needs of all of the carriers, and we'll be presenting that to the hearing examiner. But they have ascertained that the proposed 150-foot height is the minimum necessary to accomplish this, to clear the trees, to have separation between each carrier, and also the top 10 feet of this will actually not be wireless facility. It's going to be a tree topper to make a more natural shape to the monofur design itself, as opposed to some, I mean, you've seen some of them that kind of look like a Q-tip at the top. This brings a more natural sight line to the monofur itself. So in asking for the variance, we realized that we need to demonstrate a need for this. And we have been on this facility for more than 10 years. The carriers have configured their networks around this particular location to serve a very large area of the community here. And without a variance, what we anticipate is that there would be a severe wireless service disruption for the 3 major carriers that are on that water tank today. As we discussed earlier, this location is the only one available to serve this unique need because of the fact that all of the carriers are on it. We just need to go in the same general spot, and there is no alternative for us here. The monofur that we're proposing is of the highest quality, with branching that is dense and concealing, with a tree form that has bark that looks like the surrounding trees. And it's being sited in the middle of other trees that are of similar height, not 150 feet, but of similar height, to be able to screen most of the monofur facility. And this is a map. The green represents the existing coverage from the current 3 carrier deployments. This is the coverage footprint that would go away in the event that we could not replace this facility on the site that we're proposing. Next slide. I hand this over to Leela.
And with that, I'll step in. I'm going to give you some more of the technical details of what's being proposed for each carrier here and walk you through a little bit more of the actual site design. So what you see here, hold on, I'm just going to tweak that a little bit so I can see it better. What you see here is an illustration from the zoning drawings. So here you see this is the water tower site. So down the hill closer to Providence Loop Road is where the wireless communications facility is proposed. It's, as you see, a 60 by 60 foot square area. Here is a photo of that proposed area to give you an idea of the tree density that you see there, and the general nature of that area. Also here you can see Providence Loop Road right through there, so you see it's closer to the road than the current water tower facility. Another picture, this is more with the road to the back, looking in to give you a character of the trees there, what the ground generally looks like, and also what some of the surrounding vegetation looks like. I know we talk about trees and forests and being in trees, but I have to say that this is an area where it's really dense tree canopy and dense mature trees. That's to our advantage because it does screen the site. So here is the 60 by 60 foot area zoomed in. This is also from the zoning drawings. So what you see here in terms of the actual facility itself, you start with the gravel access road, so that's so that maintenance vehicles can approach the facility and there's generally access to the wireless facility. Each of the 4 carriers who would have equipment on this facility have an area where they put their equipment. That area, pardon me, I need to flip back to my notes. That area is approximately 15 by 20 feet for each carrier. Over here, you see this little rectangle there. That's a shared generator that would be used by all of the carriers. Then we have the entire area surrounded by a 6-foot tall fence. So the area gets leveled, there's a small retaining wall, and then the fence goes around it to screen the equipment. There's also a landscape buffer surrounding this so that there would be additional tree planting requirements and landscaping further screening the facility. And then right in the middle is the monofur tower. So you see that centrally located is where the actual tower would start. So there was a lot of thought and consideration on the part of all the carriers put into this design. And again, I apologize, some of the formatting got a little bit tweaked in our presentation crossover. So as Kim had alluded to, this is a very high-quality monofir design. So monofers and monopines, all of the tree designs for wireless facilities have come a long way in recent years. And this particular design with this monofir is one of the densest tree branch configurations that you can have, and it's also designed to be more like an actual tree than some of the others you might see. The landscaping provides natural concealment, and as I mentioned, there's also an additional landscape buffer. Multiple carriers allows us to allow fewer towers overall. So by allowing this one tower, it decreases the number of towers. But in this particular case, the wireless communications facility isn't allowed use in the community facility zone. And there are no other areas around here that would really work for it because of it being surrounded by residential. So, so that's why we're choosing this location. Also, just want to point out that lower slope is also part of the reason why you see this height being taller than it necessarily would be up the hill, because we do need to clear that tree line. Now let's talk about what clearing the tree line means and what this is actually going to look like from an elevation perspective. So you see down at the bottom, we've got the fence compound. So that's where all of the equipment is. Then as you go up the tree, you get your tree trunk, and then your 110-foot tall surrounding trees. The branches start at approximately 50 feet, and then you have the locations of the carriers right there behind it. Pardon me, moving the box. So dish would be at the lowest height on the tower, with the top of their antennas at approximately 110 feet. So, so sometimes we get the question, well, you know, you're clearing the top of the trees. Do you really have to be all the way above the trees? Well, if you're at the highest point in the tree, it's not going to be quite as good for signal propagation, but that's about as low as you can go. So the antennas are really starting right at that place where the foliage thins out and you can actually get a good signal out. Trees, wood, blocks wireless communication signals. So wireless communication signals are generally line of sight, not 100%. We have RF engineers who would go into more detail with that, but generally the good way to think about it is like a flashlight analogy, right? So if you're in thinly branched trees, you get some light through, but not full light through. Each of the carriers has approximately 10 feet of space. So generally antennas are 6 to 8 feet tall, and then there's a 2-foot separation between the top of one carrier's antennas, the bottom of the next carrier's antennas. So then going up the monofir, so Dish, and then you've got AT&T, then T-Mobile, and then Verizon. And then that stops at 140 feet. The top 10 feet is the canopy. It's a part of the design from this manufacturer. Then what it is additional branches to make it look more like a natural tree. All right, and then some more photo simulations. I appreciated the photo simulation that Doug put up. It was more of a zoomed in view. I'm gonna just kind of point here so you can see. And also in these photo simulations, you'll see that the monofir is a slightly darker green. And that's because it is hard to see in a lot of these. So we wanted to make it so that you could actually pick it out. So right here is where you see it in this simulation. Then we've got right there in this one. And then here's, I believe this is the photo that Doug had zoomed in on, so there we go. And then here, it's right there. And then I know photo simulations, it can be difficult to know whether this is actually how it's gonna look. So what we did is we asked the carriers to let us know, have you installed a similar tree? And it turns out that Verizon has installed a very similar tree fairly recently in the Pacific Northwest. So we had them send us their actual construction photos of that tree. So this particular tree is going to be from Ershman Engineering, and this is another Ershman tree. Now this is not exactly the design of our proposed tree. It's a different height. This trunk design is slightly different. This is just a painted brown trunk. Also, our proposed facility would have more screening around it, more natural vegetation around it. What I like about these pictures is that they are more of an unobstructed view of a faux tree than you would see at this site. So, so they give you a good idea of what the actual monofir looks like. And that concludes our presentation today. So we're happy to answer any questions, and we've got representatives of the industry with us as well. If there are any questions we can't answer, we're also happy to take back any questions that we don't have expertise to answer in the room. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will now open the meeting for public questions and comments. Jared, has anyone signed up for comments on this topic, either in person or virtually?
No one has signed up in person, but I will open this up for anyone in the audience. If they'd like to raise their hand, we'll give you a few seconds to do so, and we can try and get you in. No one has indicated online, but someone has in person.
Okay. For those making comments, please direct your comments and questions to the applicant. Staff is here to answer any questions about the review and permit process, but we ask that all questions related to the site and design be directed to the applicant and their team. As a reminder, when it's your turn to speak, state your name, speak clearly and pause frequently, and limit your comments to 5 minutes. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Catherine Matthews, and I'm new to the area, and I'm wondering what is the distance from the proposed tower to the Providence Point tennis courts as the crow flies?
I can find that information. Give me a minute and a half.
That's great, and if you can also direct me to an overview map that I can easily access. Thank you.
Would anyone else present like to comment?
I'm Roberta Brown, and I'm a resident fairly close to this. So I had just 3 quick questions, and maybe they've been taken care of. Really appreciate, by the way, this opportunity to ask. First, as you know,
Excuse me, could you go ahead and turn on your mic for us? Thank you.
there you go. Okay. Did you hear what I said? I think you did. Yeah. My first question has to do with as we know, in the hearings and so forth, there is site contamination in that area where the water towers were. And part of the conditions for approval of the project was that it would be, the soil would be completely cleaned and submitted to the Department of Ecology for approval before anything could proceed. And so I'm just wondering, I realize this is very early in the process, but how that might work out, and if there is a plan with the tower for when it comes to work on that. So how it would just coordinate. And then my second one has to do with if you read the staff report and so forth for the project, there is throughout all the hearings, there was an assumption that the new tower would be a future, in fact, the word is used, future tower, after the project is completed. And so, it's a little surprising to see it here actually proposed before the water tower is taken down. And who knows if it'll even ever be taken down at this point. So I'm wondering, in doing that, I know the wording in the, for utility services on page 159 is that a temporary cell tower on wheels will be constructed. So I wonder if that's been considered. Final thing, and that has to do with the loop road itself. And I'm wading into thick waters here that I don't understand myself. But I'm reading the staff report again on page 153, and there is a special deviation simply to have access to the loop road because of the distance to the next intersection. And because of that short distance, only, as it's stated there, only emergency vehicles can use that entrance. Now, how that would relate to use for a utility, I don't know. So those are just questions. I mean, it's fascinating, and I appreciate the opportunity to ask the questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And is the applicant able to address any of those right now?
Yeah, we'll be happy to address those to the best of our ability. So as far as site contamination, my understanding is we'd be complying with the requirements set by the school district, but I'm not certain of the details there. So we'll have to look into that one in more detail. That's certainly something I would expect would be clarified before construction. And the wireless industry generally, we deal with evaluating the environmental conditions of soils often, and it is a standard practice for us where there is known contamination to deal with that soil management. So this is not something that's out of the ordinary for us at all. Frankly, I'm not familiar with the specifics of that particular element of the larger plan, so we'll have to look into that.
Well, and the tower piece of this construction has to comply with the conditions of the larger plan as well. So we thoroughly intend on doing that and would be held to that by the school district as well. And I think you also had a question about the future nature of the tower, and that it was indicated as a future tower. What the three carriers learned is that the water tower will be decommissioned. It will be deconstructed, and what we're trying to avoid by being proactive here is an interruption in service, because all three carriers are on that water tower. Literally, wireless service in the service area will go dark if we don't have an alternative. And so this is the proposed alternative. So we've started the process early so that we can try to sync up with the school district's demolition of the water tower, which we have heard is a certainty. It's just a matter of the timing as to when that happens, but we would like to make sure that we're on air and serving the community before anybody starts knocking the tower down. I think we'd like to be proactive.
And to add to that, a temporary facility may be needed during construction. So if there's any kind of gap, especially as equipment's being moved, et cetera. But in a perfect world, the new tower is constructed before the old tower goes down. I believe your third question was pertaining to the access to the facility. Just so that you're aware, wireless communication facilities don't require a lot of vehicle access. Generally, technicians go out to visit the site when there are particular issues that need repair or on a quarterly basis. So what you're not going to see a large increase in vehicle traffic here. And in terms of specifically the route that they could take for access, that's something I think we'll have to look into a little bit further as well. But it should be very minimal impact in terms of number of trips, et cetera.
And it's generally not a large truck. It's generally more of a pickup size truck that would come out to do that. And I understand that we've talked about several alternatives to the loop road. One might be across the other part of the campus to come in through the campus itself. So we do have some alternatives in the event, because I know the loop road is kind of a moving discussion right now, and certainly we're not privy to those discussions, but we do have a plan B in the event that we can't use the loop road.
Associate Planner Yormick, were you able to find an answer to that previous question?
So I think I found the tennis court. I was going to ask the one who had the question. If it's the tennis court that I'm looking at in kind of the southern portion along Southeast 43rd Way, is that the tennis court you're talking about?
Yes, it's by the entrance.
Yeah, it's about 611 feet. So say 610 feet, somewhere in that area, as the crow flies.
Doug, your mic was not on.
Sorry.
If I may, again, Catherine Matthews speaking. I think that your presentation was fine. It looks like a beautiful project and nicely done, and a great idea to have one tower rather than 3 or 4. My concern is I didn't hear anything about the safety of having a cell phone tower in the neighborhood. And I understand that the research literature on this issue is not uniform, not complete. So would you care to address those issues?
So the tower has been designed, and the RF engineer that was hired to evaluate the project has ascertained that even with all 4 carriers' maximum output, that this project will emit far below the FCC limits for RF emissions, which is what the FCC requires of us. I think bear in mind that there already is 3 carriers are already emitting, and their antennas are there. None of the 3 existing carriers have plans to accelerate or expand the coverage that they're currently providing. They just want to replace it so that it doesn't, so that we don't have a gap in service. So I wouldn't anticipate that the output would be any different. But those documents are available with our application, which just got filed, and will be available to the public soon. And we'd be happy to follow up and talk to you about it once those are available.
I'll just add, since we're talking about the application that was just filed, the information will be on the active project map with this project. So if you were able to access it, the community conference through the active project map, all of that information will be there. And if you have trouble accessing it, or there are problems uploading the documents, you can always email me, and I'd be happy to share any documents that were submitted.
Jared, has anyone signed up to comment online?
No one has indicated that they would like to speak.
Okay. Thank you all for your comments and questions. I will now open the floor to commissioners. Does anyone have any questions or comments for applicant or staff? Commissioner Dillon?
So you had mentioned that the existing site has fairly dense, mature trees there, and I was wondering what you've done to try to minimize the impact of the site on those trees, or to mitigate for loss of some of those trees.
You may turn the mic on.
Oh, turning on the mic as we speak. We are part of the district's tree mitigation plan, and so we are following the requirements of that plan in terms of the trees that would need to be taken down for the site itself, and also the replacement ratios that are required. So we're a small part of a larger plan on that.
Yep. And that is detailed in the drawings that were submitted with the application.
Question? Commissioner Ikeda, what's the monofir made of? Is it a metal structure, or?
So this is where I'm not an expert on the various different kinds of plastics. But the pole itself is a steel monopole. It's a sturdy metal pole. And then the actual tips, the little needles that come off of it, are a synthetic plastic material. And we'd be happy to get more detail on specifically what material from the manufacturer. I know we have that somewhere, but frankly, it's not something I know off the top of my head. Various manufacturers use different forms of plastic for different durability, and it's a material that's designed to weather well and to generally hold up in our environmental conditions.
What are the maintenance requirements for the monofir, as far as, say, a branch falls off, or?
So the wireless carriers have several of these monofir style trees, and generally if something happens where the tree gets damaged, say in the windstorm, something comes off, the same maintenance technicians who would go out for any other kind of repair go out and clean up that issue. If there is an issue where something needs to be replaced, then that would be something that would be ordered from the tree manufacturer and then installed by a crew.
One last question. See, you have an engine generator. Is it natural gas fired or diesel?
I believe it's diesel.
And assume you'll have a above-ground tank?
Yes, actually, it's an integrated tank with the unit. So it's designed to have the spill containment in the actual unit itself and the tank.
Thank you.
Also, just to add on to Leela's comment to answer your question, typically our maintenance requirements for these are also included as a condition of approval for the project itself. So more specifics can be found there and required by staff. That's customary.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gilbert?
Hi. You said the trees are mature trees. Are they going to get any taller than 110 feet? And if so, will that interfere with the cell phone coverage? And if they interfere with the cell phone coverage, would they then be removed and replaced? Thank you.
110 feet is approximately the average height. And we would expect, some of those trees will exceed their lifespan, others will grow tall. No, there would not be plans to remove trees for the sake of the cell phone signal. That is part of the reason why it's so important to be at or above the tree line, because we need to plan over time. And 110 feet is pretty typical for stand of mature trees. We don't expect a lot of interference, but we do expect, yes, trees grow and there will be some amount of growth. And in that case, we would not be removing trees for that reason.
Commissioner Brennan?
Thanks, Chair Shore. The photo simulations showed the existing trees there. At completion of the school projects, will those trees remain, or are they part of what would be removed as part of the school project? I want to make sure that what we're seeing is actually going to be the long-term condition.
The trees within the 60 by 60 foot footprint of the lease site would be removed. But additional trees are proposed as part of the landscape plan to replace those. But yeah, we can't have mature trees within the compound itself.
I understand that. So let me try to ask the question differently. So you showed some simulations driving up the road, for example, and there were large trees that were surrounding the tower. The question is, will those trees remain after the school? I haven't looked at it. I don't remember the details of the school site plan, but will those trees remain at the completion of the school project, or will trees that were partially screening the tower in those simulations be removed?
And therein lies the challenge with preparing photo simulations, because from the perspective that the photo simulations are taken, it looks like there's dense trees, and how many of those are within the 60 by 60 foot footprint of the site is something that I don't know, and we have been unable to model, I think.
I also want to just add that there is actually a tree retention and landscaping plan as part of the school redevelopment project that we're complying with. So there will be some change to the tree canopy.
Right.
My understanding is that's been a very thoughtful, very well-developed plan. And I know that we, as part of our tree retention and landscaping plan, have had to specifically identify trees that we are removing, trees that will be planted, what kind of trees to be consistent with that plan. So no, it's not exactly the same, but my understanding is that that's really keeping with the same nature, and the goal is to keep the same forested environment there in long term.
Okay. I understood the need to remove the trees in the footprint of the facility. I mean, that's clearly is necessary. And then, as far as the height that's been established, so just doing some quick calculations on what the existing height is of the facilities on the water tower, and then what's being proposed. And I understand there's a difference in elevation, so some quick crunching here, so my accuracy might be off a little bit. But this is roughly about 40 feet taller than the highest antenna on the top of this facility would be about 40 feet higher than the antennas on the existing water tower. So that's more than the 10 plus 2 that you said for each carrier. So this will be some distance, 40 plus feet higher than the existing facilities.
That's true. That's true. And part of as outlined in our RF justification for the height itself, one of the challenges is that this particular site is lower AGL than the existing water tower site. So we'll be losing some elevation just in relocating the facility itself. And then adding the fourth carrier and the separation. The math is detailed, I think, in the RF justification report, which we'd be happy to pull out and email to you.
I just, the point obviously is trying to minimize, the height as much as possible.
Yeah.
And so that's something, obviously, we're not going to look at the report here tonight, but.
Yeah, the only optional component really is the tree topper. The top 10 feet are there for aesthetic reasons, to soften the profile of the tree. They're not functional to the tower itself or to the wireless uses. But we find that jurisdictions will prefer that to the alternative of a less natural looking tree.
Yeah. And then I think you stated this already, but this is a replacement, not an expansion of service area that would be provided by this facility? So
It's a replacement of the existing service area for 3 carriers. And then Dish Wireless will be added as a 4th carrier choice.
But as
the
far
service
as the
area.
broadcast area, you showed a map of the
Yeah.
broadcast area. That would essentially remain the same with
Yeah,
this?
that's the footprint of the existing coverage.
Okay. Good. Thank you. Thank you.
It's approximately, I think, 2 square miles and is it
18,000.
18,000 customers that would lose service.
I had a couple similar questions to Commissioner Brennan. I think the applicant should look at the existing trees that will be remaining on the school site and make sure those are coordinated. It is, I don't know cell tower information or how those work, but all of the carriers are now currently at the same height.
They're actually not. They are separated. It's by some distance from each other vertically, but they're also separated quite a bit more horizontally, which also addresses the interference issues. So now we're going from the diameter of a water tank to the trunk of a monofir, and that has an impact on the vertical separation that you need.
Mm-hmm. And do you know the schedule for the water tower decommissioning?
That is the $5 million question. We do not know the schedule, the exact schedule for the decommission. We just know that we need to be up and running somewhere else when they decide. And from my understanding, we will get some notice, but not a lot of notice that the decommission is going to go forward.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if the 2 schedules can be combined somehow with the permitting process, but that might make sense. Any other commission comments?
Yeah, Chair Shore, one more quick, and this is a question for staff and for the public's benefit. Can you talk or walk through this process that this approval goes through and the rough time frame that you think that would happen, and how the community can continue to engage along the way?
Yes, I can address that. So there are 2 land use permits that are going to be, or that were submitted. There's a variance application and an administrative site development permit application. Both of those require public notice. So another notice of application will be sent out to the adjacent properties within 300 feet of this site, and I believe it was 400 and something addresses. And then I was also sending it out to the parties of record for the Issaquah School District site, just to encompass that as well. So that will go out within roughly 2 weeks of submittal. You can provide comments after that notice of application up until the point that we have the hearing. I would say with having to look at the RF study that was provided, we'll have to get a third-party consultant to look at that, go through the SEPA environmental review. It will probably be with a couple rounds of review, anticipate a couple rounds of review, probably a few months before we would even have a hearing with the hearing examiner. So sometime in midwinter. Following that, then we can get into construction permits. those will tend to go a little bit quicker. There's a faster timeline for wireless construction permits than for regular building permits. So we'd have to get the construction permits reviewed within 60 days. So looking maybe summer. Yep.
Any other comments?
I do have one more question, Commissioner Shore. Since the antennas on the existing tower, are they on all sides of the water tower? So it's not like they're only broadcasting one direction? Or receiving?
Currently, the antennas are on all sides or are surrounding the water tower in different placements for the different azimuths or directions they need to assist broadcast. And if you think about the nature of water tower, it's just generally bigger and more round. So right now there are a couple different heights of antennas on that water tower, but they are spread around the entire tower.
Thanks.
I believe we are done with commission comments. Were there any city council updates staff would like to provide?
Just a brief update. On December 7th, City Council passed their first biennial budget, taking into consideration many of the things that have been discussed here. Looking forward to that moving forward in the next couple of years. And we've touched on this before, but there is a contractor code of conduct that's been developed with direction from City Council that will make its way to the Development Commission likely in the new year. With that, just a general update on Title 18. We are moving into the final consolidated draft, so taking all of the parts, all of the buckets, pulling them all together into one consolidated form, and the hearings will likely begin starting in the new year, giving plenty of time for digestion of that before PPC takes on the public hearing there. And just general calendar update, there does not appear to be anything on the calendar for the Development Commission for December. We will know within the next few days if there's any projects that need to make it this way. So that's it for me.
Okay. Any other business or announcements? Okay. There being no further business before the commission, I adjourn the meeting at 7:26 p.m.